So I recently made a video where I was talking about football records that will be very difficult to break. Like, these records are impossible to be broken, no matter how you try. In fact, it will take you to do something extraordinary as a player or as a team for you to break this record. That is, even if you want to attempt them. And one of the records I talked about was Chelsea being the only team to have won the Champions League and the Europa League the same time, like simultaneously. They were holding the two trophies at the same time. Chelsea were the defending champions of the Champions League, and at the same time, they were still the defending champions of the Europa League. Is that not crazy? How can you be a defending champion of Champions League at the same time you are still a defending champion of the Europa League? They did this in 2013, and this is absolutely crazy. Now, when I posted that video, it drew loads of reactions, fans, replying with some misconception, which I want to clarify right now. Many people were writing that Porto were the first team to do that. Porto have done it before in 2004. Porto, and all of that. Okay, let's explain and settle this so that everybody will grab the knowledge. Now, one thing I want you to realize and know is that the Europa League final is always being played first before the Champions League final. So if you're a follower of football, I know you have this information. You always play the Europa League final before you play the Champions League final. And yes, Porto won the Europa League in 2003 and then won the Champions League in 2004. But it is different from what Chelsea did. Now let's explain in a very simple term. In 2002-2003 season, Porto won the Europa League. Noted. Now the next season, they went on to qualify to the finals of the Champions League. They made it to the finals of the Champions League where they were due to play Monaco. And don't forget, while in the finals of the Champions League in 2004, they were still the defending champion of the Europa League. But because the Europa League final is always being played first before the Champions League final, that is why Porto were not able to replicate the record of Chelsea. Now, the finals of the Europa League in 2004 was played on the 19th of May 2004 between Valencia and Marseille. Valencia actually won that final, 2-0 win against Marseille. So immediately Valencia won the Europa League final, automatically Porto were no longer the defending champions of the Europa League because already we have a new champion in town, which is Valencia. So the only thing they did was now they went on to beat Monaco 3-0 in the finals of the Champions League, and they became defending champions of the Champions League. So, but this is entirely different from what Chelsea did in 2012 and 2013. In 2012, Chelsea won the Champions League against Bayern Munich. Now, the next season, they didn't make it past the group stages of the Champions League. They finished third in their group and they went down to the Europa League. Now, because the Europa League final is always being played first before the Champions League final, that was why Chelsea were able to claim this record. They played the finals of the Europa League on the 15th of May 2013, where they defeated Benfica to claim the title. So when Chelsea won the Europa League final on the 15th of May 2013, they were still the defending champions of the Champions League because the finals of the Champions League have not been played. I don't know if you're following. It is very simple. So Chelsea won the Europa League on the 15th of May 2013, and they became the defending champions of the Europa League. I don't know if you get that. And they were still holding the Champions League. Unlike Porto's own that they won the Europa League final was played first before they now won the Champions League. So before they won the Champions League, they were not holding the Europa League title. But Chelsea, when they won the Europa League title, they were still holding the Champions League. It was 10 days later, on the 25th of May 2013, that Bayern Munich now won against Borussia Dortmund in the finals of the Champions League, that Chelsea now relinquished the title, and they were no longer the defending champions of the Champions League. So you see, they are different. So Porto didn't do that because Porto never held the Europa League and the Champions League title the same time. But Chelsea had the Europa League and the Champions League the same time in 2013. And I believe I've been able to correct this misconception and also educate you in case you were not aware. So up till today, Chelsea are still the only team to have ever held the Champions League and the Europa League at the same time. And I don't think anybody's going to break that record because the format of the Champions League has changed. There's no team that's going to be dropping from the Champions League to the Europa League. And even if you win the Europa League this season and you want to win the Champions League next season, the Europa League finals will be played before the Champions League. So which means you will relinquish the title before you even win the Champions League. So Chelsea, your record is safe.